Hi, my name is Lydia Kostopoulos, and I'm a strategy and emerging technologies advisor with a deep passion for body data tracking and human performance. All in the pursuit of feeling great and having as much energy as possible to pursue the things that fill me with joy and purpose. This interview series is about discovering how others have created and are curating their personal healthy aging protocol, one that aligns with their values and the person that they desire to be and become. I hope you find it to be of interest. Let's dive in. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and share your healthy aging protocol.
Good morning. Thanks for meeting with me. So my name's Christina, and I have the missing piece therapy as my creation, my baby. I help families with difficult moments and difficult stages. I work with children from ages 2 and up. I am super interested in early childhood development and the way that we can use self-regulation to help set our children up for success.
Thanks. I really look forward to hearing more about your plan and how your background in counseling and therapy ties into that. So tell me, what is your healthy aging plan? What are the pillars? How does it work for you?
That's a great question. So my personal healthy aging plan really ties in physical, spiritual, and mental wellness. I think that as a person, it's hard to get all three of those in just one practice. But I love yoga because I think that it incorporates as much of that as one thing can. And as a busy mom, I need some hacks.
So that's kind of like the yoga is the one that transcends all of your three elements in your healthy aging protocol, which is the spiritual, mental, and physical. But could you dive deeper into, for example, the mental part?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a mental health counselor, I feel really strongly about exercising mental wellness the same way that we would our body. It's a lot easier to think about the long term effects of doing a push up or doing a pull up and how that kind of manifests. But I think that mental wellness is just the same, right? It requires some practice and it requires some dedication. So the way that I personally focus on mental wellness is through meditation, and the yoga practice also helps me to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and breathe through some of those moments of actual physical pain. So then when I have moments of stress in my day-to-day life, I'm able to then use those same breathing strategies to get through it and to remind myself that I am strong, that I am important, and I am caring, and all of these things that help me to be a good person.
So it sounds like there's a bit of the mindfulness combined with affirmations. That's kind of like strengthening those mental muscles that you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being able to have that positive self talk gets me through those moments. And sometimes, especially with my children, if I am having trouble regulating my own self, I have to literally get into a yoga pose and breathe.
Well, it sounds like you've got a really good system. So, what about the next part where I know you say that a body in motion stays in motion, and that's kind of your principle around the physical part of your healthy aging.
Absolutely. So I have an 80-year-old grandmother who is constantly in motion. And so really, I think that philosophy comes from having watched her. And the physical is really about moving my body every day. I can't say that I have some extremely regimented workout routine, but I make sure that I'm going outside and I'm seeing nature and I'm going for a walk that elevates my heart rate a little bit. And I'm breaking a sweat every day but also making sure that I can like lift, doing things properly. And that's kind of where like the yoga comes in. I use my own body weight and strength. Um, I have a little toddler at home. He weighs about 25 pounds. So I'm constantly doing 25-pound curls. And I had to do some physical therapy after I had my children to kind of like get my body back into shape and really regain some of that core strength that helps me to have overall good physical wellness.
That's very intentional. I don't know that everyone after having kids, and I even think men should also be thinking about the physical therapy. It's not just mothers, but I don't think everybody thinks that they should be going out and trying to correct kind of some of the postural issues that could downstream cause effects. So I think that's really cool that you did that. And so finally about like the spiritual part. So I know the yoga transcends all of them, but we've talked about the mental part and we've talked about the physical part. But how are you intentional about the spiritual part? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I grew up Lutheran and I am a believer in the Holy Trinity, but my prayer has really transformed into meditation prayer. And so setting an intention when I enter into meditation and trying to bring forth, I know that there's a lot of talk of like manifestation, but I feel like when I can connect with nature, that's really where my spiritual formation foundation comes from. I'm lesser than a tree, and no matter what humans do, we can modify, we can change. I can never create something from nothing. And I think that that in itself is powerful. So being able to kind of draw on that energy of creation, and I think being a mom actually helps me feel really connected to that process as well. So I start and I end my day with like a small meditation prayer, whether it be like thankfulness
That's
that I got through the day, or it be, some kind of like gratitude for what happened, or maybe I get a nice letter from Lydia in the mail, just something that was able to like bring a smile to my face. I think that that's really the spiritual aspect, is that connection with community and the world around me that's bigger than me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research to show that a healthy aging plan or longevity kind of plan really requires community because we are not alone in this world. And actually, there's an African philosophy about how our identity doesn't come from us, it comes from our community, and that we are through our community and we are not alone. And then you talked about nature, and that reminds me of the work that Susan Magsaman's doing over at the Art and Mind Institute at the Johns Hopkins University. She is actually going to be on this series, and she talks about nature being such a neuroaesthetical place and how nature actually really calms us. And there's a lot of science behind that, what you said. So yeah. So then after now we've covered your healthy aging protocol, and you mentioned you're a mother. And so I want to know, how is it that you role model your healthy aging behavior to your kids? So, for example, you have a toddler. So, how, and he's 2 or 1.5? Correct me.
He's 1.5.
Great. So, how do you do that with him, for example?
That's a great question. So he's my second pancake. So I think that things are a little bit easier with him. I have a little bit more experience under my belt, and I have seen the way that something as simple as a timeout helps him to be able to self-regulate. And I know that timeout is controversial, but there's this moment where I like very quietly and calmly tell him, no, that's not allowed. And I sit him down and he stays and he listens and he kind of watches for my reaction. And I'm just like, I will either like rock or I will breathe with him and he'll stay for the full minute. And then he'll kind of wait and like reach his arm up and ask if it's like okay for him to leave. And then I'll tell him, okay, you can get up now. And there's this moment of making amends and like repair that I think is super important. And so if he threw something, I'll have him pick it up. If he hit me, I'll have him say sorry. Sometimes he'll throw his food and I'm like, oh, definitely no, like we need to clean that up. So I give him like a little rag and he'll clean it up. But I think it's really like allowing him the space to self-regulate. We did the same thing with sleep, and we did it for my daughter as well, to give them an opportunity to self-soothe. And it's so hard because as a mom, I'm like, oh my God, it's so much easier if I just clean it up myself. Like he's just going to make a bigger mess when he like smears it around. But it really gives him the space to be able to breathe, or it gives him the space to be able to like calm his mind enough to think, okay, I wasn't supposed to do that. What should I do instead? And I think that this is the moment that we're building that kind of foundation for him to be able to do that for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true because if you think about kind of some of the important pillars around like healthy aging, it's about being able to control the food you put, being able to say to yourself, I am going to work out today and do it because exercise is also important. And so I think it's really brilliant that you're setting the foundation for him in terms of the deepest kind of root of it, which is self-control. And also, I know that you role model for him healthy aging options, and you try to train him like to visibly kind of see kind of like food and real food, like plant-based food or food that basically is not heavily processed. And so, and I know you do that for both of your kids. And I wondered if you could just share a little bit about how you try to role model healthy eating and what healthy eating means to you, of course.
Absolutely. So we've been following a mostly plant-based diet since my daughter was about 2 years old. We watched a documentary and we are like, oh my gosh, we totally have to commit to this. And we just kind of went cold turkey and like threw out a whole bunch of groceries. And then we realized like, oh my gosh, we don't know what we're doing. So then we had to like call some experts who had already been living the lifestyle for a while and ask them for help, and started following all these vlogs and things. But here we are, 6 years later, and after getting pregnant again and having some illness, realizing that I'm gluten intolerant and having to make certain modifications. We eat more like seafood and we do eat some meat now. But I think that there's this concept we learned called Eat the Rainbow that made it kind of fun for our daughter. And that I think is so true at any age, right? It's like if we can have something that is of every different color of the rainbow, and hopefully something that still has some living cells in it, then we feel better. Like our energy is better and our moods are better. And we're just like, I think we're overall in a better place to approach our day. So the way that I do it with my son is I give him an option of, like a vegetable, a starch, and I try to include some kind of protein. And sometimes it's like within one of those other categories. But it's so interesting to see the way that he's drawn to certain things. And I don't think that it's based on color. I think it's actually based on texture because he's teething a lot. And so he goes for some of those harder things. And his favorite thing is celery and carrots. Like, regardless of what I put on that tray, he'll start with that. And I think it
Yeah.
helps the irritation in his gums. But really, my daughter will
Yeah.
come home and she's like, Mom, where are the carrots? You know, and it's just a part of their lifestyle. So when they like hear the jokes
Mhm.
about like broccoli being gross in shows, like they're not grossed out. They're like, what? Why do they think broccoli is gross? I think it's great. And it's just been a part of their diet. And so they enjoy it.
That's great. So it's you've normalized food that's not processed for them. And when you say eat the rainbow, I've heard that expression before. But I was first introduced to that expression through advertisements of Skittles. I don't know if you remember, but they say eat the rainbow, but it's the Skittles rainbow, not the food rainbow.
You're right.
um,
They do. So we reclaimed it and we use like fruits and vegetables.
so about your daughter's in third grade. So she's like 8 or 9. And I know with her, she has an amazing structured nighttime routine. I know it because I've done it with her before. And we followed the steps because they're printed out in a beautiful sheet. And I wanted you to talk that through about, because I think it's just so brilliant as I'm a huge fan of nighttime routines because to me, it helps me calm my day and conclude my day and get into rest mode so that I can repeat the next day, but from a fully rested place. And so I'm excited that she has a nighttime routine. And I'd love for you to share what her nighttime routine is, how you came about it, and why you thought it was so important to do that.
Absolutely. So I came about it by actually listening to what other parents had had success with. So I'm always grateful when someone else can like pave the way and I don't have to reinvent the wheel. But actually creating a visual chart for her was really important because we realized that she needed that kind of cue as opposed to us constantly telling her what to do. She was able to go back and reference the chart, and we were able to reference the chart. And then it made things so much smoother. So we always start with a bath. And I think when we originally talked about this, I forgot the bath because she's taken that portion over now herself. She self initiates this part of the routine. So she takes her bath, and then we read a book, and she brushes her teeth, and we get in bed. And she just enjoys that kind of ceremony and the reading of the book. You know, there's times where she'll pull one out that's a little bit more juvenile. And she's like, oh, Mom, I want to read this one again. And it's almost nostalgic for her at this point. And she'll read to her brother now because he has kind of the same routine building. But I love it because it's it's so much a part of our everyday function that we know at this time we have to be home to do this thing. So it really forces us to think about our social calendar as well and what we're willing to make exceptions for and what we're not willing to make exceptions for.
Mhm.
And she thrives. She does well with it. She's asleep.
That's huge because that's important. Because our calendars actually are play a really big role in our healthy aging plan, and it's about carving out the time for these kinds of things. So yeah, so sorry, continue. So we've got the bath, and then you read the book, and then what happens after?
So then she brushes her teeth and we will lay down. And she's so funny because there's moments where she's trying to like claim this part now for her own, like she did with the bath. But she will sometimes be like, Mom, I'm going to go to bed by myself tonight. I'm like, okay, well, I love you. Good night. And I'll tuck her in, which is what I've always hoped for. But then there's that little part of me that like is a little sad that she doesn't want to cuddle with me anymore. And
Oh,
so sometimes I get cuddles and sometimes I don't, but that's part of her growing up, and She's fantastic. We will give her some chamomile and some thiolene right before she goes to take her bath. And we just found that it helped to really like calm her and give her that little extra boost that she needs. So she was diagnosed with ADHD, and my husband also has ADHD. So I'm pretty familiar with the living with someone at this point that has those struggles in the executive functioning areas. But I think that for her, that really helps kind of start the routine. And by the time she's ready to like lay down, she's just like so sleepy. And it doesn't take longer than like 5 to 10 minutes for her to fall asleep now, which is fantastic, because it used to take an hour and a half before we made the chart when she was about 3 years
Wow. And so I have a question about the part of the routine where she brushes her teeth, because oral health is so important to healthy aging, like healthy gums and brushing and all of that. And so you have that as part of the steps in the nighttime routine. How has she taken to that? Like, is that something she struggles with, or is that just something she gets on with? Like, could you tell me more about that?
She likes brushing her teeth, and she's really committed to it. And
That's awesome.
will have to say that she
awesome.
wasn't always like that. Yeah. But my son too, he actually will like reach for the toothbrush. And so now there's this community aspect of it. Like they do it together. So they're brushing their teeth together, and it's adorable, because for him, we still sing the ABCs. For her, we also sang the ABCs when she brushed her teeth, because she needed like a distraction because she hated it. But it's so cute because he'll just automatically start singing it and reaching for his toothbrush. And so they both are now like singing their ABCs and brushing their teeth and getting ready for bed. And I love it. I love watching it.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've really like nailed in the don't forget to brush your teeth before you sleep routine. So I have one final question for you. So you've got your healthy aging routine, you've got it in place. It's something that you're also trying to role model for your kids. But why? Like, what motivates you to be proactive about your health and your healthy aging?
So part of my motivation is them, and wanting to be there for them in the long run. And also because I think that helping other people has always been important to me. And I think that in order to be able to help others, I have to start with myself. If I am the vessel, especially as a mental health professional, then I need to be able to have my own health in order to then be able to show up for someone else. And I think that that's true in every aspect of life, as a daughter, as a wife, as a mother, and as a provider and friend.
Yeah, it makes me think about the whole put your oxygen mask first before helping others.
Yes, exactly that. And there's times where it's hard to do because I am so busy trying to help everyone else build their own routines and build their own healthy habits. But I find that when I am able to take that time for myself and really invest in the health of my overall well-being, physical, spiritual, and mental, that I'm better for it. And so is everyone else.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me and to sharing your healthy aging routine and how you role model that for your kids. I think it's fabulous. So thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
This series is meant to capture personal stories of individual healthy aging protocols and is for informational purposes only, and it does not constitute providing medical advice or professional services. Those seeking personal medical advice should consult with a licensed healthcare practitioner. If you'd like to find out more about Christina, you can reach her at her LinkedIn profile. And if you'd like to know more about her therapy practice, you can find more information on her website, themissingpiece.com. And peace is spelled P-E-A-C-E.